listening to Shameless Feminine Speaks with your host, modern-day shaman and sister to all, Rebecca Haywood, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Well, I don't know where we are. Hello and good evening and welcome to Shameless Feminine Speaks, the only show on LA Talk Radio for all you shamelessly shameless women, men, ladies, and misfits ready for the feminine re-evolution. And tonight we're really amping it up.
We are.
Yeah, we're amping it up.
Here we
got
go.
Fire. I'm feeling a little feisty. I'm like growling. You ready to growl with me? A little growl?
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Scorpio's in full force tonight, folks.
Yeah, we're in full
Beware
force.
the Scorpio.
Yeah. And I got my co-host, Shameless Sheena.
Yes, I'm shamelessly shoeless because I like to do radio with no shoes.
And I wear my cowgirl boots, so I'm making up the difference.
You're all lucky I have pants on. At home, I do radio with no pants.
I'm kind of glad you have your pants on, too.
Are you? You prefer I wear pants in your presence.
I do. I do
right.
prefer this. But, you know, anything could change. Anything could happen, especially tonight, because we're owning it. We're owning all of it. This is our topic for tonight. Owning it, capital I-T, exclamation point. And what does that mean? What are we owning? We're owning our power.
Yeah.
Yes, we're owning our power. And, you know, Sheena asked me, like, where did this come from all of a sudden to, like, own it? Because we've been in this place of nurturing,
mothering
right?
it,
mothering,
caressing its head,
honoring our emotions, right? And loving on ourselves with self-love. And it's been lovely and beautiful and sweet and soft and kind.
Yeah.
And yet there is, yes, that gentle face of love, and there's also the ruthless face of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And there are those times where we have to take out our sword with ourselves and with those around us.
Yeah.
Right?
Is the moon in Aries? I think it might be.
Is it?
I think that might be what's going on. I'm pretty sure it is.
Sheena's like looking at me with a raised eyebrow over
No,
here.
I'm an Aries. Go for it, baby.
Well, hey, last week I told everybody to masturbate, so
Well, yeah.
you know, this is only we're progressing here. I think.
Yeah. I think you told fish to masturbate in one episode.
No, you. Oh, yeah. Actually, maybe I did. I did advise. No. We were talking about menstruating
If any fish are listening, please.
But they-
Self-love is good.
If I didn't tell you fish to masturbate,
Yeah,
go for it.
Please.
If, you know,
if you can't make more fish, then just make love to yourself,
if your
fish.
fins can reach, you know, go
If
for
you're
it.
listening, go for it.
Yeah, we're definitely feisty tonight. And so, yeah, this is like not out of the blue for me at all. I've actually really been like yearning to do this show ever since I left Teotihuacan.
Okay.
Okay, because something really beautiful happened there on that women's retreat. And what it was, to like summarize, is a walk of ownership, you know. And I've given y'all a little bit of background on this journey where we broke from the patriarchy. That was, you know, our download from Teotihuacan was to bring all the men there and leave them there. And to break from the patriarchy and to raise the feminine up from her hiding place. And you would think that, you know, as women, we were doing this with like, you know, and even though there was fire there was such sweetness at the same time. And that's really that full spectrum love that I'm talking about, you know, that this walk of ownership requires. It requires that gentle face of love and that ruthless face of love. It's together. It's one, right? It's embraced and it's empowered all at once, all in the same breath, you know? And that's really what these women did. They left their men there, and in that process of leaving them there, they owned their right to be here. And they owned every wound inside of them in such a beautiful way. There was no more victim, no more villain, only ownership, right? And they each chose to be here again. They chose again to be here, okay? So this is what we're talking tonight, owning it and doing a walk of ownership.
Love it.
You know, and what does that look like? What does that mean? We're, again, everything in balance, right? And I hesitated to do this show, even though I really was like aching for it, because I knew that we needed to kind of feast on that self-love first. I knew that we needed to embrace ourselves first. Why? Because we're like so well practiced, right, at shaming ourselves into change, right? And or blaming the rest of the world.
Sure.
Right? Blaming our history, blaming others, right? For blaming our lot in life, right? And so I knew that we had to make that step of the embrace first before we really could step into true empowerment, right? Where it's not down with the man, right? It's simply embraced and empowered. It is owning your stuff, right? Your stuff. You know what I was going to say there, which okay. I guess I'm allowed to say.
You're allowed to say
owning
that.
your shit.
Nice.
Yeah. So bottom line, right? There's nobody else here, right, living this life but you, right? This is your life, right? And your life, your rules, your game, okay? And I see so many people that, you touched on this in our first show on mothering, on the superpower of our mothering, when we're really diving into the shame around it. And I kind of, quickly ignored what you said because I knew.
On purpose?
Yeah, on purpose, because I didn't want to go there yet. Again, I wanted to stay in that, like, go for it, get selfish, love on yourself 100%. And yet what you said is so pertinent to today's show, because what you brought up was that kind of over-mothering of ourselves, right? Where we can stagnate ourselves into this place of kind of self-pity, victim stance, right? And there's an addiction that I see. My friend Betsy and I were talking about it last night. This addiction that I think we all kind of see to processing, right? To like constantly looking for our wounds, for our blocks, right? And it's like we're dangling this carrot out in front of ourselves constantly, right? And, there's not that choice to be, that choice for change and transformation is not out in front of us. It's right here, right? It's in the embodiment, right? It's making that choice to be that here now rather than when I, then I, right? Or looking back into the what ifs.
I think in some ways the over-processing, here I go, shameless Sheena speaks, it's like douching. In the sense that, there
I love where you
there are
take shit.
times when you need to douche, but those times are very rare.
Yeah.
Mostly, you just need to let your body do what it's supposed to do and not go in there and try to clean out a bunch of areas that are supposed to have bacteria in them. I think it's the same thing on a spiritual level. If you are constantly looking for every minute thing that might be wrong with you, you're going to continue to find things. Because the farther you dig, the deeper you dig, the more you find. Walking your path and owning it and walking your talk doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be curled up in a ball locked in your house constantly obsessing over every single thing that ever happened in your life and never moving past it.
Exactly.
Some of that ickiness is supposed to be there in your psyche because it makes you who you are. You survived it and you learned from it, and it's supposed to be there. To constantly try to wash it all away with like vinegar and floral scent, that's not a good thing, because some of your grit is supposed to stay, because that's what helps you not only fight the next hurdle yourself, but be able to teach others to do the same.
Yeah, the key is not becoming the suffering.
Yes.
Right? Not suffering along with it. Betsy, my friend Betsy Chassie, gave me the best compliment last night. She said, Rebecca, you never suffer. You're so good at not suffering it, right? Like, I process, right, as I've shared very frankly on this show, an old trauma that was new to me came up for me at the beginning of this year, right after moving to LA. And and she's right, that I don't suffer along with it, even though those emotions were present for me. And yeah, there were tears and there was anger and there were all kinds of emotions going on for me. I myself wasn't suffering them, right? And that's kind of the place that I was trying to get you guys to in all of our shows on emotions, on the superpower of emotions, is that befriend those emotions, right? And recognize that they're all coming from love, and they're a beautiful thing. When we're not afraid of them, then we don't suffer them, right? And so if we're not suffering our grit, right, and we can kind of have that grace with it, graceful grit, right, it becomes a really beautiful and, again, organic process.
Right. And, if you take out all the grit, then the pearl is never made. Sometimes the grit is supposed to be there because that's where the pearls of your life come from. And if you're constantly flushing all of that out all the time because you're obsessed with everything that ever happened in your life, everything you might have done wrong, everything somebody might have said to you. I mean, people like if everyone is constantly purging. Now, there's a certain amount of purging that you need to do, but you can over purge to the point where you literally wash the spiritual bacteria out of your life that is supposed to be there because that grit is where the pearls come from.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's a balance. You know, we love that word here, and it's a balance of, you know, allowing your process, right? Just allowing it. That's really all we have to do. Allow it, put love in front of it, and yet there's also a time, like I was saying, where we start to overindulge in that, right? And where it's time to actually like break out our sword of our ruthless love and call bullshit on ourselves, right? Because there is a way to honor, right? To honor ourselves, to honor our emotions, to honor our healing process, to even honor our needs without going into victim, right? And without standing on top of that victim, you know, as the survivor or the thriver, or like the unrivaled spiritual deep diver, right? Where there's just this constant looking for the next block, looking for the next wound, taking the whole world as your mirror room. At some point we say enough is enough.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can't spend your entire life processing is a beautiful thing, but you can't spend your life processing at the behest of living. At some point you have to say, okay, I'm always going to be processing. Part of being a human being is you're constantly going to be processing things. But now in addition to all that processing, I'm also going to be living my life, because you can't just stay home and I can't go anywhere, I'm processing. It's like, okay, but you've been processing for 50 years. There needs to be living.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, when I moved away from San Diego and my training with Madre Sarita and Don Miguel, I threw out all the rules, you know, and I just wanted to chop wood, carry water. You know, I no longer wanted to be on probation, on spiritual probation, watching every thought in my mind, watching every feeling and constant process. And it was so beautiful. And I think that taking that break from it really allowed me to then come back to this place where, yes, I walk with awareness and with acceptance of what I see and find, and yet I don't suffer it. Right?
It's beautiful.
I recognize that it's perfect, right? If something's up for me, like, okay, well, let's see where you take me. Like, let's see, you know, how you learn me this time and how you unravel me this time. Like, I'm willing to unravel. And, you know, it's just really, really beautiful when we can own ourselves in that way, all of ourselves, right? One of my biggest kind of lines is like to bridge, to marry the human with the divine, right? I was so fortunate being able to live with Madre Sarita and Don Miguel for as many years as I did, where I wasn't just seeing the guru on the couch or the amazing shaman at work healing. I was seeing their humanity, right? Day to day, right? Eating breakfast. Sarita with rollers in her hair, you know, laughing like a little girl with tears in her eyes, you know. I got to see their humanity. And so that's one of the biggest ways in which I work with my students, is that I show them my humanity, right?
It's beautiful.
And I encourage them that it's one and the same. It's to be a marriage, you know, to bring the divine into the human and to honor your humanity 100%. And yet let's not overindulge. Let's be so mindful of how we're honoring our process, of how we're stepping through that, how we're doing this walk of ownership. Are we really truly owning it, right? Or are we victimizing ourselves through it? And that's really the biggest thing that stands between ourselves and our power, right? Is one, this concept of spirituality, right? Of something kind of outside of ourselves, something that isn't human, something that we're kind of masking, right? And that's the thing with this overindulging and this addiction to processing. It really is a symptom of the victim. It's just beautifully masked with a spiritual purpose now.
Right. You're still flogging yourself. You're just flogging yourself with a lot of intellectual searching and toiling, but you're still just beating yourself up.
Yeah, and it can be so subtle, right? Like before you just like go, oh, well, I don't do that. take a moment, take a breath, like go inside and really see, like, how are you processing? Are you really truly owning it 100%? And are you suffering it, or are you allowing it? You see, suffering versus allowing. And the other big thing that stands between us and our power, right, besides our concept of spirituality, is that victim, right? And again, she can be so subtle, right? So subtle. And, you know, I was trying to think of, like, because I really was a big victim. Like, I was really good.
I have been at times in my life too.
Yeah, I loved my victim. I mean, I was a really good victim. And I was trying to think in preparation for today's show, like, what was the one moment, you know, that where I really, really broke free from the victim inside of me and broke that pattern, kind of exorcised the victim from my being. And, you know, certainly it was a journey leading up to it, right? A lot of awareness, building my awareness around it, identifying the thoughts along, you know, that the victim, the voice of the victim, identifying the emotions of the victim, practicing refrain rather than repressing, right? Practicing refrain again and again and again and again. And there was this one day, though, where I was in a workshop with Don Miguel, and there was a woman processing, you know, she started crying, and he invited her into the center of the circle. You know, we're all sitting in a circle, and he invited her, you know, just go ahead, have a good cry. And so she went, like, flopped down onto the floor, just crying, and he looks around the circle. Anybody else need to join her? And, you know, all these people start going down, you know, and just start, you know, crying. And I'm sitting there, and I could feel the taste for it, you know, like I wanted it. I wanted to get in the center of that circle. I wanted the nummy. I wanted the pity, you know, I wanted to feel those feelings, that sorrow, that there was this palpable hunger for it in my body. And yet I was in the practice of refrain. So I sat there and I'm watching. And this beautiful colleague of mine, Rita Rivera, she comes and she walks up, because she knew my relationship very well with the victim. And she walks up and stands in front of me and looks at me with these very fierce eyes and asks me very directly, do you need to go into the center of the circle? And I felt this fire start to build inside of me, right in my belly, this fire. So I could simultaneously feel that victim kind of hungry and yearning to say, yes, me, I need it, the little me, it needs it, right? And yet this fire was burning, and so I just put my attention on the fire, and with all of that fire, I made a choice in that moment, and I said no with all of my will, and it was so beautiful. I could see in my mind's eye my victim, right? And I could feel her, my victim. And from that fire was this warrior self that rose up under the victim and pushed her up and out of me. But it was so beautiful. There was no judgment there. It wasn't repression. It wasn't even refrain anymore. It was a choice. It was a choice.
Wow.
You know, and that's the choice that these women made on the retreat in Teotihuacan. They crossed that line of personal power with a declaration. I am here, right? I am here. And that, you know, you've heard me say it. I was saying it last week with the tool of forgiveness, putting your hand on your heart.
Absolutely.
I am here, right? And that's a beautiful way to use it, right? That gentle face of love, that gentle voice of love.
Yep.
I am here, sweetheart. I got you. I am here, right? And yet what we also spoke about, kind of in both of the last shows, was this aspect of ourselves that isn't quite here, right? That hasn't quite given ourselves permission to fully be here, to fully own ourselves, to own this life. To give ourselves permission to be here is that is that declaration of I am here, right? And those of you with trauma that like a piece of yourself checked out, right? We get to make a choice again now to be here, right? I know when I was connecting with my trauma self, she made it so clear to me, like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this world. It's unsafe. It's unwelcoming. You know, it didn't feel like home to her. And so I had to show her, you know, I had to show her how to be here. I had to show her the beauty until she was willing to say, okay, all right, I'm willing to be here.
Good for you.
And so for all of you, whether you identify yourself, as one that has trauma or not, recognize, have you really truly made the choice to be here? Do you really give yourself permission to be all that you are, no matter what you are, no matter what your presence looks like, what your body looks like, how you present to the world? How do you present to yourself, right? How present are you with yourself? Are you fully inhabiting this body? Are you fully inhabiting your choices? Or are you still making yourself small, right? It can be so subtle how we make ourselves small. And believe me, I'm still working on this, right? I make myself small with my New England politeness, right? Just being so polite, being well-behaved, like a good little girl, right? But it's time to stop hiding behind the nice girl, the spiritual goddess, right? And even for you men's, okay? Even for you men's, like, stop castrating yourself in the name of spirituality, please, right? Or, to make up for what your kind has done or does, right? Like, be a man. Like, it's okay. Like, as you are, be a man. You're not that guy, most likely, right? And so thank you. And I forgive you. We forgive you. On behalf of all women, we forgive you.
On behalf of Shameless Feminine Speaks, you are forgiven as long as you're not doing anything that you shouldn't be doing.
Right. And I can't wait to say this next thing. This was in my post, and now I just can't wait to say it out loud. So thank you. We forgive you. Now take that dick and swing for the stars, baby.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Right? Do it your way, right? There's such a thing in the spiritual community. Like, I remember looking around at one point and going, where did all the men go, right? Where did they go? Like, they've all kind of rolled over into their feminine in a beautiful way, and yet they lost that balance.
Yeah,
right?
and not always in a beautiful way. Sometimes they roll over into their feminine and they're still lascivious predators. They're just lascivious predators dressed in yoga clothes and sitting in an ashram.
An ashram.
Not, right?
Yeah.
Not owning your masculinity doesn't necessarily make you less creepy. It just makes you a different kind of creepy. So just, be honest with who you are and say, here are the things I like about myself, and here are the things I don't like about myself. And look, here's a situation where I probably was a little bit of a predator and I'm never going to do that again. Or here's a situation where I acted like a dick or a bully and I'm not going to do that again. And that's women too. Here's a situation where I acted like a bully and I shouldn't have done that. And it's you have to admit what you've done in order to say, all right, I did that and I'm not going to do that anymore.
Right. But you don't have to disempower yourself in those, confessions, right? We, that's the beauty of awareness is we have the awareness, we confess, we repent, and then, rinse and repeat.
And then you're done.
Right?
Yeah, and then you let it go.
Rinse and repeat if
you don't process it forever.
Exactly.
You're not constantly talking about, I have a friend who has a friend. I have a friend of a friend asking for a friend
of a friend.
Who is, I guess, a man, and that's the closest description I can give. Who's one of those who's always like every sentence has to start with, well, all men are evil anyhow, so I have no right to talk, and tries to do this whole kind of faux, metaphysical, super hippie liberal kind of thing where he's always telling, when I see women in movies, I always think, well, thank God, because we've all had enough of men. But then every time his wife tries to speak, he shuts her down or tells her what she just said was stupid. It's like, man, you haven't changed your patterns at all. You've just learned to do this weird passive-aggressive-y, don't look at me because, I'm in yoga pants, so I must be one of the good guys. Owning something and saying you are something are two completely different things. And I would have more respect for him if he was just like, yeah, I kind of don't ever want my wife to talk. Right. Okay, I don't like that, but at least it's honest.
Yes, yeah.
Not this whole like, chicks rule and men are terrible and, oh God, I have to go through life being a man and what a burden, we're so awful. But then every time his wife says something, it's like, no, that's wrong. So, find your authenticity. That's part of owning it.
Oh, yeah.
Figure out who you really are.
Yes.
And admit the things that maybe you're not the most proud of, and then say them out loud. I've been so on that journey this last month of I just say out loud now that, these are things that are just ridiculous about me. I did a show last night for 2 hours, a call-in show on my Raising the Vibration show, just about fear. And as I was waiting for people to call in, I just started confessing all this crazy stuff that I'm afraid of that I didn't think I would ever say out loud. And it felt good.
Yeah.
Just own your stuff. It feels so good to own your stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, empowerment, it's so tied to our voice. It really is, and so that's like an amazing tool right there that Shameless Sheena just gave you of just, using your voice, confessing your sins, so to speak, out loud, but not to be shameful about it, right? Just to own that. And also, to speak up for yourself, right? There's so many ways that we use our voice to empower ourselves versus to disempower ourselves. And when we're sitting there with that constriction, when we're biting our tongue off, right, in the name of spirituality or in the name of being polite, like a little New England Rebecca over here.
Right. Little New England Sheena.
Yeah. It's not serving us. We are no longer co-creating our life at that moment. Right. Our word is our power. It's part of our power. And it's part of how we create our reality. It's how we shift our reality, how we communicate with another, how we shift a relationship with another. It's also how we, call in a witness, right? And how we manifest, right? It's our magic. And so how are you using your word, right? And that word, it doesn't matter whether it's spoken out loud or not, right? There's certainly a level of power to the spoken word, and yet don't underestimate those thoughts that you're having that you're not speaking out loud.
Good.
Those are still creating, right? So be so mindful of how you're using your word, because it is your power. It is your sword, and you can use that word with truth, right? Or you can put on the mask, as Sheena was talking about her friend, and put on the mask. You can talk the talk, but are you walking the walk, right? It's kind of like a yoga pose. If you're just trying to get there, right, from the outside and look like, okay, I got this pose down. You're not really in that pose. You're not really experiencing that. You're not really embodying that yoga pose versus doing yoga from the inside out, right? There's an embodiment that comes along with empowerment, right? So embody yourself, own your presence, right? And let's stop blaming the rest of the world, blaming our history, shaming ourselves or shaming others, right? Let's own all of it. As the women traveled through Teo, I was amazed at just the simplicity of these rituals that we were doing, because really what was empowering in them all was that they were using their voice, right? In each place we were called to do something with our voice, to make a declaration or to speak the spells that had been cast against our body, for example. And it was so incredibly powerful.
So beautiful.
So simple, and yet so powerful. So make your declarations to yourself. And, for this show, the declaration, if you want to just choose one, is I am here, right? Let's turn that from like, here I am, right, to I am here, to I am here, right, to then here I am, so what, right? Like, so what, right? Let's stop judging ourselves and trying to fit into a mold versus just allowing ourselves to be and accepting that our humanity is just as perfect as our divinity.
Yeah.
Right?
We talked on one of the first shows about how women have a tendency to apologize for everything because culturally we think we're not supposed to have a voice. So if we have one, we have to immediately apologize before or after we say anything.
Yeah.
It's that same thing. Stop apologizing for who you are and just be who you are. Now, if you've done something hideous to someone, by all means apologize to them, but don't apologize for your everything. And I've really been through that journey in this year of not being able to walk and having to walk with a cane and with braces on my legs, and people look at you and they immediately make a judgment. And I was telling this story last night on the show. I've had a couple of instances in the last couple of months, one just last weekend, where I get mistaken for maybe a homeless person because I go down, I run my errands, and I've got my jammy clothes on because they're comfortable and because I've been overheating, and I've got my braces and my cane, and people make assessments about you. And my immediate thing is to feel guilty, like, oh, well, it's my fault that I look like this, and this is why I'm being judged. And, it's not my fault. I didn't ask for somebody to screw up a stage so I fell off it, and I didn't ask for somebody to screw up an appointment so that I was in a machine too long and hadn't. None of it's been my fault. It's just been a comedy of errors. But yet my tendency is always to say, oh, yeah, my God, oh, my goodness, yep, that person's, well, of course they think I'm homeless. Look at me. Yeah. It's not okay. But I'm constantly apologizing for myself.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there's a wonderful distinction right there. Own your shit, not theirs.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Own your shit, not theirs. Okay. And the best way to do that is self-awareness, right? We've spoken a lot about that. If you are aware of yourself, then you know what's yours and what's not, right? If you don't judge yourself, then their judgment can't come inside of you. It has no place to stick to, right? They can, of course, judge you, right? But it's theirs and it stays out there, right? So don't accept their shame. Don't accept their blame, just as don't accept your own shame and blame, right? Take that power back. Turn that finger back inward, right? And take that power back. It's so important. So important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all of the ways that, we can reach for deeper power, deeper personal power, and really cross that line where, we stop looking back.
Yep.
Right. And, in this journey, I would say, I really just live in a place of no longer seeking. Right? So that acceptance allows, again, that organic presence of your power, right? And that absence of doubt. Miguel used to say to me, doubt the doubt. And that's a really amazing tool, doubt the doubt. When that voice comes inside of you that says, I can't or I shouldn't, right? To doubt that doubt, right? Doubt that voice, and instead turn it to that empowered voice, right? That isn't about the should. It's not just the polarity of that doubt. I should. It's I will, or I am, right? Or I would love to, right? Just feel the difference of that in your body versus I should or I need to, right? And so again, we come back to this balance of being in that place of honoring your needs, right? But doing it without the need.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that all comes from this embracing that we've been doing, this embracing of every emotion as perfect, right? As every emotion is coming from love. And yet also raising our sword and stepping through, right? Making a choice that I am here. I am here. I choose this life. Whatever you believe about you chose this life, choose it now, okay? No matter how you were raised, choose it now, right? Life is for the taking, 100%. And, break it if you dare, right? And then make it again, but make it better and truer and stronger, truer to you.
Yeah.
Not to him or to them, right? True to you, right? That authenticity is so important, and that's where your power lives, not in trying to mimic, right?
Yep.
Right? How many people live that way, where they are talking the talk and mimicking, right, another's. So, the other thing that gets in the way of really stepping into our power is, of course, fear, right?
Yeah. Oh, fear is terrible.
Right? And, I remember when I realized that I was actually afraid of my power. It was very similar to the moment that I realized I was actually afraid of love, right? It was kind of like, well, why would I be afraid of my power? Or why would I be afraid of love, right? These are beautiful things. These are things that I say that I want, right? And yet underneath, when I really got honest with myself, I saw that I was terrified of my power. And, we spoke a little bit about it, I think last week, of kind of, that we know how we've gone against ourselves, right? We know how we've used our power against ourselves. So, of course, there's a little bit of mistrust there. And yet, even deeper in that power, and I'm going to go into that ancient shame, that our power has been sacrificed again and again and again.
Yes.
It has been crucified. It has been burned at the stake. All of those things. And when we really connect to that fear of our power, it sounds kind of crazy, but I was like, oh my God, yeah. I'm like, oh, they're going to kill me, right? if I step into this, they're going to kill me, right? And on a more kind of practical, worldly level, like how does that translate into our relationships? But it actually translates more often than you think and more regularly than you think in terms of keeping yourself small so that they're comfortable, right? Keeping yourself small so you're a smaller target, right? But also keeping yourself small so that those, alphas around you are comfortable, right?
And it never works because they always see you anyhow, and they're still angry.
Yeah.
They always figure out, no matter how much you try to fly under the radar, they always figure out how bright your light is, and then they decide they don't like you anyhow. So it doesn't do you any service to hide from them.
No, because we talked about dimming your light, right? Dimming your shine.
Don't dim
your shine, people, because it's still shining in there. And really the only one suffering is you.
Yeah.
And they're going to want the honey, or they're going to want to bring you down. There's just that predatory weirdness, right?
Hierarchy.
Yeah. And it exists between women as well, that between sisters. It's not just, being in a relationship with a man that, where he wants to bring you down and like put you back on your level. There's, that undercurrent of competition between women.
Yes, it's
right?
terrible.
Where we can't, it's like we're not allowed to celebrate each other's power, each other's beauty, each other's grandness, right? But, let's break out the sword with that one. Let's get ruthless with that one. Let's call bullshit on ourselves and each other, right?
I love that.
Yeah, it's so important. Like, I hope that you all are just like growling out there and roaring and feeling this fire, because that's what I want to light in you today, is that fire, Yes, this is self-love too. Calling bullshit on yourself is self-love too.
Sure.
Right? That moment where I said no, where I didn't need to go into the center of the circle and cry with everybody and get my nummy nummies, my victims' nummy nummies. That was the greatest act of self-love that I had done for myself probably up until that point.
Yeah, good for you.
Life,
good for you.
So those acts of self-love that, maybe again, we can come to this place where we really, we judge that power, we judge that feisty, we judge that bitch inside of us. And, try her on for size. Try her on for size.
Yeah.
Get comfortable with that, because that's where your power lies. Your power lies in those moments where you said yes, even though you meant no, right? Where you smiled, even though, no, that was not okay, right? There's a place inside of us that is setting boundaries, right? With that sword and drawing the line, not in sand, but in concrete, and saying enough, like no more, not okay.
Yeah. And
yet we're suppressing that inside of ourselves, right? In the name of like being the good girl, being nice, being spiritual, right? Being accepting of the all, right? I mean, at some point on my spiritual journey, I was so, like, I had no boundaries.
Yeah.
I barely even had a personal preference. I was like air. And it took me some time to reclaim that and to like give myself permission to like, no, I have an opinion and that's okay. I have a point of view and that's okay. Right. And it will change. Sure. It always does. But to honor that, to honor all aspects of yourself, but with that fire, with that feistiness, and with your voice, voice it, 100% voice it. Right? Yeah. So, I hope you all are feeling this fire. I hope you're willing to do this walk of ownership. I'm not sure. How much more time do we have? Because I know we got a late start.
10 minutes.
Oh, right. Yay.
I'm the keeper of time as well as being the shameless, shoeless one.
Oh, I'm so happy that we have more time. This is like a first. See, we should always start late, because then I talk faster and we get through it faster. This is
then we
great.
have 10 more minutes just to own it.
Yes, to keep owning it. So, in terms of owning it, and there is that awareness piece of noticing when you feel small. Absolutely. Notice that. And yet also, take moments to just practice your power. As I was saying, try her on for size. Okay. There's a tool that we're going to do a whole show on it here at some point, but
on a tool?
Yeah, on a tool. And it's shape shifting. Okay. And, in shamanism, There's, you know, the shape shifting where you can like shape shift into a jaguar, you know what I mean? Shape shifted into eagle. And yet I've really used this tool in my life to kind of break molds of myself, right? So I give myself shape-shifting challenges. And so we're going to do a whole show on this shameless feminine shape-shifting challenges. And this may become a part of like regular homework for you, of like your shameless feminine challenge, shape-shifting challenge this week is, okay? And so this week, well, let me explain a little bit more. So how I use that is like, for example, as I've mentioned, I was a big tomboy. And part of, inside of that tomboy, I used the tomboy to hide. I used the tomboy to hide my beauty, to hide my sexy. I wasn't comfortable there. It wasn't safe, right? And so my shape-shifting challenge for myself to like kind of break out of that mold and to break out of that fear was to dress myself up in a nice, tight, slinky black number, but borrowed some heels from a friend, put on makeup, and took myself to dinner alone. Alone. No hand to hold.
Oh my God, no hand holding?
No.
How did you do it?
I held my own hand, baby.
Oh, I bet you did.
Yeah. And it's uncomfortable when we do these shape-shifting challenges, right? Like, and it's not just about playing dress up. It's also embodying that attitude, right? So I walked down the street. I owned it, right? I walked down the street as if I were comfortable in that dress, as if I actually owned those heels, right? I owned my beauty and I owned my sexy, and I held my head up high. You know, no matter the looks that came that then, you know, touched all those places in me that were really afraid.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
No matter, you know, as I was sitting at dinner, like the wife of the husband that's sitting at the table next to me who's like kind of scowling at me, right? It's just like all of those things. I got to see all the ways in which, of why I wasn't willing to own that power in myself, right? It bumped up against all of that resistance, all of that fear, all of that judgment, all of that shame, right? And, you know, sure, could I have done it without the shape-shifting? Yeah, would have taken some time though, and it wouldn't have been as much fun, right? So, you know, it's more than just dressing up, it's embodying that attitude. And so your shape-shifting challenge, shameless feminine shape-shifting challenge this week is to embody your bitch. You know, what does she look like? What does she sound like? You know, take some time with her, walk with her for an entire week, walk with her. You know, voice your opinion, you know, speak out loud. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, right? Don't be afraid of, oh gosh, they might feel small if I'm so big, right? All of those things inside of yourself that fear your power, you know, they're going to come up for you as you're shape-shifting into your bitch, into, you know, what an empowered woman or man looks like to you, okay? And, you know, and break that mold, bring it to those places like your spiritual circle, right? Where you've been so practiced, right? At being contained, at taming that power of making it sound right and look right. You know, don't look right for a moment or two or three or a day, right? Throw out your book of law around all of that, around what it means to be powerful. And remember that power, personal power, is not power over. It's not power over, right?
No.
Personal power is a claiming, right? It is an ownership of yourself. And the more that you own yourself, guess what? The more you are in co-creation then with spirit.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you are more present in the here and now, which is where you create your future.
Absolutely.
Right? We don't make choices, like we constantly dangle that carrot out in front of ourselves, but really where change happens is here, is now. Right? So own that. Make those choices for yourself. Own the choices that you have made and then choose again. It's so important. Like this fire, bring it. This ruthless face of love, bring it. And you know what? It may mean that you have to take that sword to some of your relationships in your life as well. Because it's not just you keeping yourself small, right? There are others who want you to be small.
Yes.
Right? And it's just the plain old truth. I'm sorry. I wish it weren't that way.
No,
right?
It's true.
But there are people in your life that want to keep you small. And you will find out very quickly as you step out of your box and just show how big you are and shine that light as bright as it is. You will find out very quickly because those people will, you know, kind of cross their hands. They will shame you. They will blame you. They will try to bring you down. They will judge you, right? and try to bring you back to that place of small. And it's really important part of your process to honor thyself over honoring those relationships. Okay. And guess what? It's going to be the greatest gift to them too. You know, if they choose to accept it, but that's between them and them, right? But your journey is your journey alone, right?
Yeah.
And in that embracing of that alone, of like, I got this, I am here, right? I am here. When you embrace that 100%, then you shift, you kind of turn inside out from the alone to the all one, right? I said it last week, that seamlessness, right? From that selfishness, right? Where when we step into self-love, the self becomes seamless with the all. The giving and the receiving become one. And it's the same with our power. Own that shit. Really own it, because you are, time is going. Time is ticking, right? Right in front of you. Time is ticking. And even though time doesn't exist, and in a sense we're in no hurry and we get as many tries as we want again and again and again on this carousel of life, why not now, right? What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Right?
Yeah. It's beautiful.
That's all I have to say.
It's beautiful.
And take that dick and swing for the stars.
Yeah. Yes. And that's an ethereal thing. You don't have to actually have a physical dick.
No, exactly.
Swing for the stars no matter what you've got.
Yeah.
Even if it's just your spiritual dick.
Your spiritual dick. I love this. I love where our shows go, Sheena.
Well, but it's true, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we all have balls.
Well, the sword, right? The
Just in
sword.
different ways.
We're talking about the
Yeah.
sword.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so the men aren't forgotten. The men are like, oh, this is a show with penis in it. We're going to get a lot of men listening today.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. I hope you guys tune in every day or every week, because, it really is always for you. It's for all of us.
Yes.
The shameless feminine, we all carry the feminine. We all
Yes.
carry shame against her. And we're all looking to balance that masculine and feminine within us.
Absolutely.
Right? And it does require a bit of a break from the patriarchy within, so that we can have that direct reflection with who is the feminine on her own.
Absolutely.
Right? So own it. Own your feminine men. Own your feminine and own your masculine. Please. We want you to. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So we love you all
Yes,
so much.
we do.
Yeah, I think there's a link up there. I have a workshop coming up this weekend. It's almost full, but we can squeeze you in. And I'll be doing private sessions there as well. It's in Yakima, Washington.
Beautiful.
And it's called Developing Emotional Presence. So please check it out. Spread the word. And Sheena, where can people find you? And you have a workshop coming up too.
I have a workshop coming up on October 4th, a webinar at 6 o'clock Pacific time. It's called I've Never Met a Crystal I Didn't Like. And it's at meetthecrystals.com, and it's showing you how you can use my little friend's crystals to enhance your life, become happy, healthy, more centered, more strong, more empowered. And then I have 2 webinars that you can sign up for that have already happened. Please watch them. My empath webinar is whydoifeeleverything.com, and my narcissist awareness workshop is starvethedark.com. Please sign up for those. And I'm at sheenametalspiritual.com, and I am raisingyourvibration.com. And I'm honored to be here every week on Shameless Feminine Speaks.
Yeah. And do we have a couple more minutes?
Well, you could. I mean, you could make it. I mean, technically, nope, we're done.
Oh, we are?
Oh, we do have a couple more minutes? Yeah, we do.
Okay, cool.
We do.
Yay, because I have a poem I want to read you all. Okay? I know some of you really loved the poem that I shared a few weeks ago. So this is a fun one, and it really is on point. So it's called Confession. I am divine, and I am human. I am all of it. I am woman. I am little girl. I am sex. I am purity. I am none of it. I am infinite in finite envelopes with names and places assigned. But what is my address? Who do you address in this dress, these shoes that stumble, that sparkle, that carry me home somehow, again, awake and wanting, him and him, human and divine. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So
It's beautiful.
We love you all. You all know where to find me, RebeccaHaywood.com. As always, I'm available for private sessions. So is Sheena.
I am too.
You can find me on social media at Shaman Sister. And you find us here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific. We love you all. Good night.
Good night.
You're listening to Shameless Feminine Speaks.
with your host, modern day shaman and sister to all, Rebecca Haywood, right here on LA Talk Radio.